Alright, Mr. Dave up here in Valley Center with my buddy Tom here. Say hi.
Hey, how you guys doing? Dave did an incredible job. If you'd have seen this place when we started, it was ugly, and now it's so cool, it's unbelievable.
We got it done, we finished it, and Hey, what's going on? Mr. Dave out here in Valley Center, North San Diego County. And we're doing a different project here. We're actually going to take that dirt mound behind me that you see behind me, and we're going to create a complete artificial rock, sort of a viewpoint, so they can look to the northeast at Mount Palomar and the beautiful range out there. And we're just getting ready to get started, so thought I'd give you a little teaser here. There's also going to be a video that shows you how we made this from start to finish, and that will be on the YouTube. There'll be a referral video on the YouTube channel. What we got going on with this thing is we pre-made some of the forms right here. You can see one up on the ridge there, up on the mountain, the pile, and that's going to be brought down and placed this way in the feature, and that'll create a wall, but we're going to have stairs that go up the front and work their way around to create a platform up top. There's a slide there. We're going to take care of that and switch it over to a waterfall, so there'll be a waterfall come over here down and then find its way to the pool. We're going to change the transition point here with a more architectural shape. We've got our full-on supplies laid out here, and quite a work zone, but we have a beautiful view. And the clouds are here. We had a little drizzle this morning, but we have a beautiful view of Mount Palomar. It's behind the clouds there, and it snows there in the winter, and it's beautiful. So this is the zone, man, the construction zone. We got our adobe, we got our rebar. Those are going to go on the footings, and we have 70 sticks of steel here that are going to be made into rocks and stairs and platforms and waterfalls and all kinds of cool stuff. So anyways, another one is starting. This is the beginning. And so right now we're working on the footing, getting that all dialed in. Once the footing's done, we're going to put some steel 1/2-inch uprights in it, stub ups you call them. They'll have a bend in it, so that bend will go down in to the concrete that we're going to pour. And then on top of those pieces of rebar, we can add more rebar and create rock shapes and stuff. And it's 100 degrees out here, so I'm got my funny little towel on my head to stay cool. And so we'll be working on that. Footing starts first. We've got our supplies all dropped off, and then from there we start to build up from there and create our piece, our project. So the footing is what goes on underneath the whole structure. That's the foundation, if you will. And so let's check it out. So Dave's over here digging. This project is going to be a viewpoint, sort of an outlook. Gonna be a platform. You can be able to get up to the top, going up that way. And then there's a bee trying to land on my arm. Go away. And there'll be a waterfall that starts right there and drips down and then curves around onto that other part of the old slide. They didn't want the slide anymore. It's kind of a stupid slide. It doesn't really match. And the bee is still trying to bother me. So anyways, the footing is going in around the perimeter. We don't want to make it totally symmetrical because that'll look stupid. Nature usually doesn't have symmetry in it, or if it does, it's sort of an asymmetrical type of symmetry. If you look at a leaf, you can kind of see the difference on the patterns are balanced, but they have a imbalance sort of in the way they are put together. So the footing is going to go all the way around this mound of dirt, and these big huge panels we pre-made at the studio, and we're going to lift those up, tip those up, and that'll be the wall. Very large specimen stones or boulders as will be the look they're aiming for. We've got another one down laying on its side over here. as you can see, and that's going to be brought up to like that. We staged all our steel and our rebar right here, ready to be cut in half if we need to, or we can stretch it out and use the 20-footer. So we are proceeding. That footing's got to be the right depth and width to secure the whole structure, but it's not very tall, so it doesn't have to be too crazy big. So here Dave's cleaning out the footing. We're going to go down about a foot by a foot, maybe a little bit more, and work our way all the way around this complete mound of dirt. Once that footing is done, we're going to stick in these half-inch pieces of steel that we've already pre-bent. As you can see the little elbow in there. And we did that with a big rebar cutter. We'll show you what that is in case you don't know what that is. It's this right here. You can get these at any place that sells rebar. Probably Google it like everything else in the universe and find out where to get those. But those you can bend 90-degree corners. You can also cut 3/8 and half-inch. I think it's the biggest steel you can cut with that. We're going to use dobies as needed to keep the dirt away from the steel. We do not want the dirt to touch the rebar because it will rust, and that's no bueno. Got all of our rebar here staged. These pieces I bend so I can fit in my little itty-bitty trailer. Of course, you could always just have it delivered, which makes a lot more sense. But I don't know, I got in the habit of making the trips myself. But right now we're just getting that footing dialed in, and once that's done, then we're ready to come in, pour the concrete in there, and make it strong with those uprights, and we can build up from there. Okay, let's talk about tying the rebar together. So you have your piece of rebar, and you have your spinner tool, and it basically just lets you spin these little pieces of tie wire. And they got the loop on one end, and you basically bend it around. Then you connect this piece like that, and then you spin it. I can hold it up here with the piece of rebar. You can see. So you go, and then you end up with a twisted, it's so twisted, man. Twisted piece of tie wire. So if you're building a project, you're building a rock or you're building whatever, you get your piece of rebar in your shape and you cross over and you get them kissing, get the rebar pieces kissing each other. So you get them kissing, you bend it around. As you put a little curve in it at first, that helps it get through there a little easier. Hold it together, you get the other piece, you pull on it towards you and spin. And that gives you one piece of rebar kissing the other attached real good. If it's an area that I want to make sure is really tight, I'll crisscross. I'll put two pieces of tie wire in there. Pull, twist, and then you push them down. So these things are flat. If they stick up, that can actually be a place where the concrete doesn't get full coverage and you have a rust spot. So you try to push those things down. And so there you have it. That's how you tie these things together, with these tie wires and your spinner. Okay, so now we're going to talk about hog ringing. Hog ringing is where you're actually taking those metal clips and you're attaching the chicken wire to the rebar. The chicken wire is put on the surface of the burlap bubble shape to keep the concrete from falling off, from falling away. So what we use is, I usually use a bucket, just some little bucket that you might have. Home Depot, you can buy them, or you can use them from other things that you purchase and then you use them up. You have a little bucket. So the hog ring is basically in the fencing section at Home Depot. It's for putting chain link fence together. I use a pair of pliers that they give you. I also grind off the tips. They're real fat right here, and I want to get them thinner so I can jam them into things and get them really tight in the areas that are they're hard to fit into. If you leave this big chunk on there, it's a little more of a pain. So I grind it off with my my angle grinder or whatever, and then so you put the hog rings inside the little space there, and so now you're ready to do the hog ring. You simply pinch it down, and that secures your hog ring. They're pretty strong, they don't fall off easy, and I usually carry a couple of them in my hands at one time, a little handful. So let's zoom in on a spot and see if we can show you exactly how it works here. So I'll step down in a footing here so you can see it better. So basically you take the hog ring again, you put it on your pliers. The tape on here is just to fatten up the edge of the pliers, because if you do 10,000 of these, the palm of your hand gets really sore. So you take your hog rings, and if you have the burlap on the inside, it's easy to do. You just push it through. In this case, I'm on the outside, so I'm going to put my finger through, pull it tight, and now I'm squeezing it down on there. So now that's holding this burlap from getting blown through and having the cement just fill up a big hole, and you're paying for cement, it just goes into a big hole. So that's basically the simplicity of the hog rings. Keep them about every 6 to 8 inches apart, and you can kind of tell if there's a big space between the rebar that you've burlapped on. That can really put a lot of pressure on the holding points, hog ring points, and you could tear it and then actually blow through all your burlap and have a big giant hole inside here, and you have to either patch it later or just have to pile it on, and then you end up maybe with some steel that's exposed. That's not so good. So it's good to keep the burlap tight on there, but not tight as a drum, because you do want the concrete to go in and around and encase the steel. You want the steel to be covered with cement, as I've said a bunch of times. It's really important to keep the rust factor down. So these are connecting things together, reinforced 1/2-inch pieces. They're structurally supporting the whole thing, and those have been put in here. So we've got smaller spaces with a lot more rebar, and that's okay in certain areas. But the pre-made bubble had 8 to 10-inch pockets or squares inside the rebar as you're shaping out your rocks. So that's hog ringing. Okay folks, it's Mr. Dave out here, and we are just about ready for shotcrete. Me and Dave are finishing out the front of this section. We're getting the architectural shapes done prior to the big shotcrete, which is going to come and blow cement all over this entire thing. They're going to pump it from the street down below. We've pre-poured these steps right through here, so during the shotcrete pour we've got stability and we secure you're not tripping and stumbling, and also the shapes of these steps are made with a calm, easy strategy instead of the mad crazy dash of the blow and go with the shotcrete company blowing on thousands and thousands of pounds of concrete. So now I'm at the top up here, and this will be the viewpoint area of the whole feature. We've got stub out conduit along this whole rim here, if you will, of the rock work. This allows for lights to be put in so folks can be able to walk up and down here and have lighting on the pathway, which is a good idea. Don't want anybody falling down. We got a planter right here, a planter right there, and a little guy right there, which you should be able to see from over there. And walking around the back here, there's stairs that are going to be over here as well. So you can access this view spot from both sides. This existing boulder, which is a ginormous boulder, was part of the existing topography here, if you will. And digging the pool was a big pain. It was a real challenge, and it costs a lot extra because they ran into these things in the ground because we're in Valley Center and there's rocks everywhere. This whole place is just big boulders and rocks and granite and stuff. So use what you got. God makes the best rock, so we'll be using these guys as a guide for color, which will be fun because they're kind of a yellow DG look, DG being decomposed granite. And we're, I think, week number 3 on this project. We're waiting on the shotcrete. Shotcrete can't get here for maybe a week or so because we're so far north. There's not a lot of service when it comes to providing concrete in this market up here. And it's busy. Everybody's busy. The economy seems to be booming, and there seems to be a lot more pool and construction work, which is kind of cool. So exciting times up here making stuff. So we're going to continue to work on this, finish this part out, and get it all squared up and true, and then may or may not add flagstone to it somehow. It's starting to grow a little bit and get kind of bulky, and I don't want it to get too big. And so we're going to have to play that by ear and see what it looks like once we get the whole feature shotcreted. Shotcrete adds 2 to 4 inches all around everything. So everything you see here will be grown by an inch or 2 or 3 or 4 above the rebar all around. And that'll allow for a whole new perspective when it comes to this, the scale of this and stuff. This comes on afterwards anyway. We're going to put the flag, if we do it, once this project is done. So it'd be almost like a second project, really. We're floating over the pool, as it were. 1/2-inch rebar, as I mentioned in the other part of the video here, drilled into the side. Going to finish everything around here, going to stucco this, and then the very last step will be cutting off the rebar, removing the plank, and just putting on the last finishing touches of either stucco and or flagstone fascia. I'm leaning more towards stucco because it's thin. It'll tie it into the house. Dave, my worker guy, is an expert mason and shotcrete, not shotcrete, well, he's good at shotcrete too, but at stucco, had a lot of experience in that, and so he's going to be helping figure out how to get that dialed in real nice right here, get the color good, because he knows what that's all about. So we'll show you some more detail here. I'll walk you around and show you some of these things I've talked about more fully. Okay, here you have the boxy geometric pattern again to match the square shape of the pool. So this transitions this square design to the organic design of the artificial rock, which is supposed to be God-made. We're trying to mimic what God makes. He makes the best rock. So this whole thing is a scratch coat. It's the first coat, structural coat. We've got tons of 1/2-inch rebar woven in through this whole thing. Every section has steel coming in it. We made boxes. We preformed everything with pegboard, and that's simply easy because you can put the tie wires right through all the holes and tie it onto the rebar. You can put dobies or pieces of scrap cement to get the separation, because you want the steel not to have moisture on it or be exposed to air. So that allows it to be structurally sound long term. It'll last for decades and decades. Using a level here, sort of self-evident, you want everything to be true and plumb. You want the thicknesses to be the same, the width of the feature you want the same, and so we're working at maintaining that. We're going to let the concrete go off a little bit and then come back, remove these forms, and if we can, and we need to, we'll shave some of it off and maybe get it just where we want it as far as the dimensions and the composition. So shotcrete's coming up here, where we're just waiting on it. We've pre-poured, again, talking about what we've done already, discussed already, pre-poured just little blobs of concrete on the footings and the 1/2-inch steel that is basically going all the way around the feature. That allows the whole feature to be stabilized and not wiggling and wobbling around. I mean, this thing is on there pretty good. It's not going anywhere. So every 4 feet or so we did that. Got a drain pipe right there. That's coming from up here in this planter. I'll see if I can turn it all the way around there for you. So planters need a drain. Otherwise you'll get waterlogged plants, and It's a little more of a headache. There's probably some plants that don't mind that, but I like to put the drains in, and then you have the option of picking the plants that will work with or without a real moist environment. So this is the outside northern portion of the feature again. Footings poured. We're leaving this open because there's an electrical box right here. We want that to be able to be accessed for some reason in the future. So we're going to leave that the way it is. And the footings go all the way around. Again, 1/2-inch steel comes up, and then we tie the bubble. This was made ahead of time, pre-formed. There's actually the bottom of it right here, and then we just stuck it on there, and then we wove in steel. Again, using the tie wires we talked about earlier with a spinner, and it's pretty simple. Composition's a whole nother matter. Trying to get things to look right, to look natural, to look interesting. And I talked about symmetry and asymmetry. There's a balance to the asymmetry, if you will. So I like to have things that have function mixed in with form. Those are the two primary elements in the design of almost good anything. You want it to be able to work well, function, last a long time, have durable quality building materials, and something's going to just go forever, basically. I mean, not ever, but long decades for sure. So we've crisscrossed the steel, and again, those are all tie wires. You want to get 10 inches on center, 12 inches or so. There's a lot more than that, so there's extra. Extra is good, and I always kind of over-engineer stuff, and that way I know it's not going to give me headaches. It's going to stay solid as a rock, because the steel in here keeps the concrete from doing stuff. These rocks right here along the top edge were made just right here on site. This was a bubble that was made just over there on the grass, and then brought in as a sort of a puzzle piece. These will be places you can sit and talk to guests and friends. Pre-poured the conduit so it's all stabilized. These units won't move. Shotcrete comes in so fast and furiously that things can just disappear. They really can if you're not watching it. And the process is so big and so fast, I can't be everywhere all the time. So it's a good idea to kind of pre-plan things, pre-stage things, so they're not going to get buried. That's why the planter's pre-done. The thin little walls of the planters are pre-done. This right here is pre-done. We don't want to fill up that with dirt because that's a planter. So here's our water feed coming up. Just plain old PVC. You just make it work. Then put some chicken wire around it, and they blow the shotcrete. It goes all the way through, ties into everything, and gets hard as ever. When you do these things, don't forget to put a drain in. You want to have a drain in these starting pools or ponds, and even in any ponds as the feature goes down into the pool or into your main pond. If you don't have drains, you end up with stagnant water, and that can be an issue. What I do for these is I take a little I put a cap on it, a PVC cap, and then I drill a little tiny hole right in the middle of it, a hole that has maybe 1/8 of an inch in width, and so anything that goes down in that hole, in that pipe, it's only that big because it has to fit through that first hole. And that's a 1/2-inch pipe, so I've got enough room for that to rattle its way through and not jam up the pipe, because these are right angle turns, and if a piece that was the same width as that 1/2-inch thing, width on the inside of the pipe itself, diameter, then that can get wedged in there, and then before you 2 or 3 little pieces, and then the whole thing's clogged up and you don't have your drain anymore. So a little trick to making these ponds be healthy. The beginning of the pond up here is this 2-inch feed. I'm going to put a T, so it's going to come off on both sides. The T is going to have caps on both ends of those outriggers, if you will, and then there's going to be holes all through it, so it'll just little sound effect, and not blow water everywhere. It'll just well up and then rise up over this little berm, if you will, which is actually the top of the old slide, and then pitch out and go down to our pool, splitting as we talked about in the other video. So again, we pre-pour the stairs, which is kind of cool. So you get to sculpt, as it were. So there's our good old concrete. We like to have a staged place for concrete mixing on all our jobs, so we can, again, pre-do things. I didn't in the very beginning of my career. I didn't do that. I just tried to do it all in one day, in a matter of hours, do everything. But then it was very difficult. You have these finished edges of the steps, the edges where the waterfall goes. Certainly this would be something you'd want to be able to focus your attention on. But these projects are so big that it's very difficult to cover all this surface area in time. In the summertime especially, it can be 100 degrees and your concrete's going off in 20 minutes. I mean, it's getting hard. So now you're starting to chisel and chip away at it, and it's not fun. So there's that little planter there. If you look at the projects as far as the composition goes, you'll notice big rocks, little rocks, big rocks. You want to have a variety. You don't want to have the same pearl necklace look. A lot of features I've seen over the years are just sort of a pearl necklace, and it comes from getting real rock from a contractor company, rock supply company, and the big rocks you can't move. So we're making rocks that would be thousands and thousands of pounds as far as the scale that we're representing in the artificial world, as it were, that you can only bring in with a 200-ton crane or something. And that's just, people do it, but that's a whole nother story, a whole nother approach to this stuff. So with artificial rock, you can actually make any size boulder you want. You can make a boulder as big as a car. And some of you have seen the Stonehenge project that we did. Those boulders were huge. And if they were real rock, they would weigh thousands and thousands of pounds. So this is just about ready for shotcrete. And what else can I show you? Tape off areas you don't want shotcrete to go on. Seems pretty self-evident. So we pre-tape around the edge, tape down first, then plastic, and then you bring the plastic out to where you want to have it, blocking overspray. And that needs to be a good, I just stretch my arms out as wide as you can. I'm 6'5", so that's 7 feet wingspan or whatever. So you get that out there. So you get your plastic all around the hardscape. Whatever you don't want concreted, you better cover it up with something, or it will get concreted. The real rock sitting right here, I'm just going to leave it, because this whole thing's going to get painted and stained and colored with fog coat and other cementatious things. So it's actually going to blend in a lot better just by its very nature of the material we're using. And we'll talk to you about those things when we get to that phase.